I get to open Groundswell. This is amazing. My name is Peter Byck, and I get to open Groundswell. I just get to say that again. This is, wow. I've wanted to come here for so many years, and the Cherry family have just been amazing, and the Tufton family has been amazing in housing me and my circus, which means my boys and my wife. And I'm a filmmaker by trade. I'm now a wrangler of scientists. You may have seen some of our short films over the years, the Carbon Cowboy short films. And we wanted to do science. We wanted to figure out if what these adaptive farmers are doing, these cattle farmers, what's it doing? Is it better for the land? Is it better for their pocketbooks? Is it better for the planet? And I knew just in my own filming that it was better for the farmers, like no question. And then when we think about land, what are the elements we want to study and things like that? So this is my first slide. So for those, most people here probably know what I'm about to talk about, but the grazing that we're studying, adaptive multi-paddock grazing, holistic plan grazing, mob grazing, strip grazing, any others? Anybody else have some? And the way I was taught, it's based on the way ungulates, grazing animals, and grasslands co-evolve. So in the United States, that's the bison. And the way the bison ate before we shot them all, and now they're coming back a little bit, is they would always eat half the forage, stomp the rest down, and leave. But they're always in a nice tight pack, either because wolves were around or there's just better food down the street. And by being together, their manure and their urine was evenly spread. They're eating half the plants, so then they're tugging on the plants and creating all these things in the root system to incentivize growing, to inspire growing. So when they left, those plants just grew like crazy, and by growing like crazy, they're sucking down enormous amounts of carbon. Just to say it, I think there was somewhere between 50 and 100 million grazing animals in North America in 1491 and back. I haven't seen or been told of any ice cores that showed giant methane spikes at that time. So something was happening very beautifully with nature and the animals and the greenhouse gases to be in balance. So adaptive multi-paddock grazing, that's what our team is calling this type of grazing. Really, we should have just called it adaptive grazing. The multi-paddock is clear, but it's really adaptive. Adaptive's the game. So this is a farm in Woodville, Mississippi, where we started our study, and I'll get more details of the study. And what Cooper and Katie Hurst are doing on this farm is they're putting out single-strand polywire, and they're moving their animals in the growing season 2 or 3 times a day, unless they're busy, and they'll just make a bigger paddock and make it once a day. Or if they want to go on vacation, they'll make a much bigger paddock and leave for a week, and their friend will come in, look at it 3 days into the vacation. Adaptive. And it could be that they're in this part of the farm in May of that year, they're in that part of the farm in May of this year. They never want to be in the same place at the same time. They never want to be prescriptive. And that's what's been working for them for years. Now this is adaptive grazing. Across the way, James. I'm sorry, James's audio, Ben's in the back. Sorry, guys. So this is conventional grazing. This is the Ferguson's farm, which is an amazingly gorgeous farm. Just across the woods, the Cooper and Katie Hurst are right behind them. They will let their animals graze for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They have 7 paddocks on their farm, and they only graze 6 of them, and they grow hay in the 7th. And so they've been doing this for generations. It was the way Wallace's dad's mother taught him, because her husband, who died when Prentice was young, taught her. It's just a family tradition of grazing in this manner. And so a lot of people ask, is this scalable, right? The average herd size in the US is somewhere around 30, 35 head per herd. This is a 5,000 head herd in northern Texas. This is from our short film called Herd Impact. And these animals are run by a husband and wife in their 60s and one other person when he's not stuck in Mexico because he tried to get his girlfriend back up. And this is 5,000 head. They move the animals more than once a day during the growing season. This is completely scalable. This is a large, large herd. Even in US standards, or especially in US standards, this is a large herd. So we as a science team came together in 2013 on emails and phone calls, and then 2014 we all met at the beginning of the year, and we said, let's do something. Let's study the adaptive side versus the conventional side. Let's see what's going on so that we can answer these questions that we all have. My biggest question was, could this be a climate sink? Could this be a greenhouse gas sink? Could this cool the earth if enough farmers did it on the planet? And so if you look at our pie of research, we were studying the animal well-being, the human well-being, the soil, and we focused on the soil carbon, the soil nitrogen, and the water infiltration. We looked at the microbial life in a lot of different ways, the bugs above and below ground, and the plant cover, the nutrient density of the plant and how much of the ground is covered. What I've realized in my studies is if you see a field that doesn't have any plants growing on it, it should do the same thing for you when you see a seagull soaked in oil on a beach. It's the same disaster. It's the same fighting of nature. It's the same bad decisions. And I don't think a lot of people know that yet, but you all know that, but a lot of more people need to know that. Then we studied the birds, the grassland birds and other birds in the system. We'll focus on grassland birds today. And we studied the greenhouse gas cycle. Nitrous oxide, methane, CO2. Let's see, I think this is, yeah, that's my last slide. So now I'm going to show you clips. So we made a series called Roots So Deep, You Can See the Devil Down There. It's a 4-part docuseries. It's about all the farmers that we studied. So we did this study. I was just showing you some slides from Woodville, Mississippi, and I'm going to show you some characters from Woodville, Mississippi. That's one of the farm pairs, where adaptive on one side, across the fence, conventional on the other. And what we did to make it as apples as possible in the real world was we did a real serious soil study, and we made sure that the soil types were the same on both sides of the fence. We also looked to make sure the slopes were the same and the aspect to the sun was the same. It wasn't always perfect, but it's not always perfect in the real world, but those were our metrics, those were our goals. And that the farmers who were doing the adaptive practice in the southeast US with long growing seasons, a lot of rain, we made sure that they had been doing this practice for at least 5 years. And it just turns out that most of our farmers on the adaptive side have been doing it for decades. And then the conventional farmers had been doing it for generations. So that's how we sort of set this up. We asked the conventional, we did a big research for the adaptive farmers, sent out surveys, got 90 back from this region that we thought we should go check them out. We did a little bit more work on that. We got to 25 to go scout. And we scouted 25 and we landed on these 5. And then we had to go ask their neighbor, would you let us do all this research on your land that we're doing on your neighbor's land? And we got lucky. We got lucky. All of them said yes. They all thought we were going to tell them that they were doing something wrong, which wasn't where we were coming from at all. But what we said to them was, there is no wrong, there is no right, but what if what we find with our research, we could save you money and lighten your workload and have you produce more food on your same land with the same rainfall? Would you be interested in helping us discover this? And they all said yes. So that was huge. And so these are the 5 places. Just so you all know, I'm from the southeast US. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I hadn't heard of any of these towns before I did this research, so I don't expect anyone here to have either. So now I'm going to show you clips from the documentary. The documentary, Roots So Deep, You Can See the Devil Down There, is available right now. We just flipped the switch this morning for the UK and Ireland. It's been available in the States for a couple of weeks. So now you can rent it if you like. So we're going to go to a clip. So Ben, let's show that first clip, please. Have you been over to Cooper's this growing season or any time this year?
I had never been over to Cooper's place, But on the highway, the part that's there that you can see, you know, his grass, it'll be 3 or 4 feet tall. Now, in our pasture, the grass is not that tall.
I noticed it from the highway. I know, I watch him, how he rotates. I know where, you know, what looks good and what doesn't. I'm always watching. You know, I cheat, I look, see what's going on.
I don't think that's cheating for him. I think he'd be glad to find out you were looking, to be honest.
He does a good job.
So that's Wallace right there. I had just met Wallace within minutes of that soundbite. This is the first interview I got to do with him. I've now known Wallace for 6 years, and I call him now to see how things are going in the family. He checks in with me too. It's an amazing thing that this work has given me and my family, and I think with these folks as well. So Wallace was curious. I didn't know that. I was told before we did this research by everybody else, including really smart people that have spoken on the stage, that Wallace would have been judging Cooper, that Wallace would have been thinking Cooper was doing something wrong. But what I found out, that Wallace was curious. Too polite to ask, but curious. That showed me that there's a huge opportunity with neighbors to talk. What I also found out was that Wallace and Cooper, who you saw just walking through the field there, he'll be in this next clip, Cooper the adaptive farmer, have been friends for 25 years and had never talked about grazing. They talked about everything else but that. And so that gave me an idea. I said, hey, when I come back with the next science team, would you guys sit on Cooper's porch and let me film you while talking? And they both said yes. And this is a clip from that. They spoke for 3 hours, but here's a clip from that.
What does that make you think? Like what he's saying right there, that's not the way you work.
No, but it's, I understand it. But the thing is, I'm just saying, that grass is gonna grow when you put fertilizer on it. And without putting fertilizer on it, you think, I'm wasting my time even planting it.
Everything you're struggling with, we've been there. So
Okay.
You can't feel or say anything that we haven't said.
Yeah.
We've been there.
It's just hard to think of how you could do this without putting it up. I'm being honest.
Yeah,
I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
you know my dad.
Yeah.
He's as good as gold. And you telling him you don't have to spend him, he loves that. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Dad would eat it up. He loves the land, he loves the farm, he loves his cattle.
But you know, if you're not spending money
Yeah.
wastefully.
And that's where we are. We are not into wasting money.
I can tell you that that man is not into wasting money. Cooper and I have it's probably a 100% chance that we've never voted for the same person ever. And Cooper's goal was he said to me the first day we were shooting with him, Peter, by the time this is done, I want you to join the National Rifle Association. And I said, Cooper, I'm open to what you're thinking. Let's see what happens. Now, what Cooper doesn't know is he should have just signed me up. He should have just signed me up, and I should already be getting all the mailings. He should have already done that. So, but what I'm talking about there is, you all know there's supposedly a huge divide in the United States, and everyone hates each other, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but that's just part of the story. In our country, probably here too, if you win an election by 58% to 42%, that's a landslide. Would that be the same over here? It's a landslide. And so that means if we get along 6 out of 10 things, if we agree on 6 out of 10 things, if we want to talk about 6 out of 10 things, that's massive. And someone somewhere said we're supposed to agree on 10 out of 10 or we're hating each other. And I call that the political industrial complex. That's a TV network and a TV network and a TV network that are set up to sell soap in the commercials so that we all think we hate each other. That's what's happening in our country, but we don't. That's the good news. Cooper and I disagree about a bunch of stuff, but we agree about soil health. We agree about how to treat people. We agree about how we like to raise our kids. There's just a lot we agree on. And that gives me enormous amount of comfort because he's a friend of mine. I could call Cooper right now and ask him anything, and he would say yes. Likewise, for me. So one of the most amazing things about our study was we wanted to study birds. I didn't know anything about birds. This is my science team teaching me. We actually didn't even have the funding for that module. One of our science team groups, Steve Applebaum and his company, they just squeezed out their budget from the soil sampling and the water sampling and the plants to study the birds. They just squeezed it out. But what we didn't know was how important this one bird in the southeast U.S. is to everyone who cares about the land, and it's the bobwhite quail. So this next clip will set that up. You'll get to meet Mike, our science guy, and talk more about the quail. Thank you, Ben.
Yes, bobwhite. Bobwhite. They say their name. Bob White? Just delightful to hear that sound in the landscape. From the 90s to 2014, the bobwhite averaged approximately 5% decrease in overall population. So there's been over 85% population decrease up to 2014.
I do know this, Peter. When I was younger, they had quail everywhere. They're not there anymore.
So have you heard Bob White's while we've been here?
Yeah, I have. That when we got, right before we came on the porch, I heard that. And I kind of thought somebody was messing with me. You know, you're gonna hear things. But I have had one or two 10 years ago.
This year, we're hearing quail from daylight to dark, from front to back, and everywhere in between. It really makes you think. It makes you think.
So that expression that Wallace has right there, right, that you all were laughing at, when we first cut this together, I assumed my editor had taken a shot of a reaction of something else and put it in there, which happens all the time in documentaries, all the time. And I said, is that in context? Is that exactly what he did when Cooper said exactly that? He goes, here's the dailies, and he showed me, and it was exactly that. And that's really important to me, that everything's in context. All the farmers have seen the whole series, and they still talk to me. They actually reply. If I say, hey, I'm going to be in the neighborhood, and they're like, yep, come on by. It is nerve-wracking to show a film that you've made to the person who's in it. Because will they want to ever see you ever again? Will they want to sue you? Who knows? So the quail, I thought at this point, early in our research, this was just a couple weeks in, I thought Wallace has just heard about fertilizing with animals, saving money. His dad loves saving money. He's just heard about quail right across the fence. Wallace has bird dogs. He drives 700 miles to go look at quail. He used to hunt quail, now he just looks at them because he loves them. And he hasn't had quail on his land for over a decade, and even then, it was just one. And so that's how much he loves them, and they're right across the fence. And so I thought we had them, but we didn't. Cooper and Wallace didn't talk about this again for years. And that was, I guess, illuminating as well. This is all learning, right? So it took us years to get the data ready to show the farmers. And some of the data is still being prepped. This science takes a long time. Some science takes a lot longer than my well-being can stand. And so what we did was we went back and we shared data with everybody. And that's episode 4, for those who have to jump ahead. That's all the data. This next clip, Ben's backstage, who's just a joy to collaborate with. He and I are going to dance with it because I'm going to have him show the clip, pause, so I can show you some data on the grassland birds. So Ben, if you just bring it up and just pause on that first slide. There you go. Can everybody see that slide? So this is the number of grassland birds and the number of species we found on both sides of the fence, averaged, not even averaged, these are the totals, over the 5 farm pairs. And this is just a fence on 3 of the farm pairs, and it's just a little bit down the road on the other 2 farm pairs. Again, same soil type. The only difference was the management of the land. Birds go where they want to go. So now, Ben, if you just play it for a couple of seconds, we'll get to that next slide. Boom. So this is the Kentucky numbers on the grassland birds. And it's shocking. And the numbers for the pair you just saw is equally shocking. I don't have the slide up for you, but I'll just tell you. The conventional side had 2 species of birds and 3 birds. Across the fence in Cooper and Katie's place were, I think, 6 species of birds, but 194 birds. It's that different. And so the bird data really, it shocked me. I had no clue. All right, so now you're going to hear from Mike, and you're going to meet the Kentucky farmers who have this data on their farm, Marie Lavask and her husband, Billy. All right, Ben?
It just tells the story of a functional system and one that's broken, essentially.
That's sad. That's really sad.
What makes it sad?
Well, because, I mean, you know, they don't have any place to live over there. They need a place to live. Where are they? They should be there. That's horrible. That is, it's terrible.
What do y'all think about the science that we've shared with you today? What thoughts are you having about what you've been presented?
It's showing things that I've been doing wrong for a long time. And I said, well, I've been making a mistake all these years, you know?
It's not about mistakes. It's just about, hey, this might work better. That's all it is.
What we're supposed to do now. How do we get the carbon back? How do we do this?
That's Prentice. Prentice is one of my heroes, his son Wallace and his wife Margot as well. What Prentice just said, and when we filmed it, I knew something special was happening, because what he asked was the question that I would hope any farmer would ask, who's presented with data, and what do you think? He's like, how do I do this? How do I get the carbon back? We like that so much that that's one of our t-shirts with his face and him saying that. Like, we're going to sell that, and we'll give him a free copy, of course. So what we did next was we let the data sink in. We let it sink in for a number of months, over a winter, and we came back in the spring just to see what was still reverberating in the farmers' minds from the data we gave them. Oh, hold on. Yeah, hold on, Ben. Let me check something out real quick. I'm pretty sure that's what we did. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Sorry about that. Next clip, please. What data affected you more than any other data that got you thinking, or?
Hearing that the land is unhealthy because we have not got the species of birds that should be here. That broke my heart. So I want it to be healthy, you know. That's our job, is to take care of it.
All right. So that's Marie. Now, she says take care of it. Marie takes care of people. Marie and her husband bring in foster kids just all the time. They care for people all the time. They have their own kids. They have their own grandkids. She cares for people. She's a psychiatrist at Kentucky State Hospital. Takes care of really, really delicate human beings. So she takes care of people. Farmers in our study are high school teachers. Wallace is a high school teacher for at-risk kids. He's also a coach for tennis and basketball. Another farmer in our study, John Lyons, who you won't see today in these clips, but you will in episode 2 when you watch it. He's a basketball coach. He teaches at-risk kids. I just met so many caring people in this study, and you haven't seen a lot of the scientists in these clips, but you will see them in the series. I'm a gatherer. I'm a wrangler for the science team, but the scientists are just amazing, brave scientists. They were the ones who'd been wanting to study this for years. I'm sure you all know the name Richard Teague, or some of you do anyway. But he's been battling this battle just to study this type of grazing for decades. He's had colleagues try to get him fired because he wanted to study this type of grazing. And we've had other people. We have a colleague at Michigan State who was getting threatening letters just because he wanted to study this type of grazing and actually have a research farm so he could research it. That's what a lot of these scientists were up against, the older ones. The younger ones on our team, they just sort of came on in and were like, this is what you do, and we all did it together. So it's been an amazing experience to learn from them. It's like every day I get to get like more of a PhD education. Our last clip is just to show, so what we said to the conventional farmers was, well, I'll tell you, Marie. When we met Marie, she was the last conventional farm that we were getting to sign on. She said, what's going to happen with the data? After she told us that we'd been trespassing on her land and we were lucky her dogs weren't in the front yard. She said, what are you going to do with the data? I said, it's your data. And she said, this was before we even started, she said, what if the data shows we could be doing something better? And that's when I did a little heel click in my brain. I said, we'll help if you want. We'll do anything you want. And that's when she said yes to us coming on her land for years. And so what that offer was, Alan Williams has spoken here before, has he not? Yeah. So Alan is a great friend, a great teacher, great human being. And so what we offered to all the conventional farmers who would want to learn, we offered, we'll bring you Alan, and we'll do a day with Alan. And so this last clip I'm going to show you is a little bit of that day with Alan. Last clip, Ben.
Well, so I appreciate it. I'm going to be honest, I'm really glad Peter told me you will come. And just what you told me this morning is a lot of information, but it was good, detailed information that never had ever been explained to me before.
Right.
It's kind of making a lot more sense to me now. When I met Peter, he never really pushed me on anything. I think that might have helped. You know, if you say, hey, this is the way to do it, and I'm hard-headed on certain things. That's, I guess, normal, but...
Hey, Wallace?
Yes.
What I've been thinking as I've been watching, it feels risky for anyone to change the way they're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm thinking now is the real risk is not changing. Would you agree or disagree?
I'd say yes, it'd be risky not to change it. You're not gonna make money doing it the way I've been doing it. And I've got proof across the fence. If I can get it to grow in grass like my neighbor here, Cooper's got, it'd make me very happy. We'll see. I just know Cooper had quail over there, it made me mad. It was good to see it. It's good to hear it.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's all I'm showing you today for the clips. But again, we flipped the switch. We wanted to just thank Groundswell for letting us present, and it's available now in the UK and Ireland for rental at rootsodeep.org. And if you want to follow us on social, Carbon Cowboys is our handle. And I know some of you are already following us, and we appreciate that. Now, I don't know, but I think we got a few more minutes in the program, do we not? Right? So let's just open it up for questions. Just yell it out. I didn't ask them if we could do this. Just be loud, and I'll repeat it. And
how do you personally strike the balance between, if someone's doing something not very much right and plenty wrong, obviously there's not much merit in saying you're not doing this right. Mm-hmm. How do you engage with that in your own personal approach?
You mean as a dad? I mean, I'm a teacher. I teach students how to make short documentaries at Arizona State. I probably should have said that earlier. It's a great place to work. Highlight the good. Highlight the good. I had a boss, one of my first bosses, and she always told me what she liked in the edit before she then got into getting into what she wanted changed or what she thought could be better. She taught me how to do exactly what you're talking about. Highlight the good. And maybe even ask, how did you find out about that? Why did you go that route? That's awesome. I never even thought of that, unless that's a lie. But, highlight the good would be the simplest thing, I would say. What we found in our research is there's a lot of common ground. There's a lot of places where we agree. It's just listening for it. And I found that in my own research as I've been looking for solutions to climate change and things like that, trying to change someone's mind is incredibly difficult. I don't even want to bother. But finding out where there's common ground, where you already agree, that's where I find action. That's where I find things can move forward. And so if I won't hear what someone and I agree on unless I shut up, which isn't my job this morning, and listen. And so I had a boss, my first boss out, and he told me, he sat me down and said, Peter, you're the worst listener I've ever met. You suck at listening. And then he showed me some successful filmmakers that he worked with who were great listeners. Obviously, it wasn't a good thing to hear, but I did listen, and I've been practicing for decades now. And so that's what I would say to that. Find that place to say, great, really great. Honestly say that. Yes, sir. Oh, hold on. I got you running. Did you get your coffee? Okay.
Thanks. So I've come across your work on YouTube and seen a lot of the clips. And per that other question, I even heard how you redirected when he said we've been doing these things wrong for all this time. You said not wrong, but there's a better way. I think
there may be. Yeah.
There seems so much emotional charge in all of the stuff I've seen, from the woman crying about the birds, even the town hall meetings that you do. People really emotional.
Yeah.
And I would like you to talk about how much of that room is like that, or the population is like that, because you even talked about the power of editing and picking the right person.
Yep.
It just feels like there's such an emotional charge amongst these people who are managing the land.
Yeah. So I had another teacher, he was actually a therapist, and he told me in my 20s that I was very far away from my feelings, and he thought as an artist, that's not really a good place to be. So again, I was taught things that weren't great to hear, but I did listen. His name's Barry, awesome man. And so I've always been attracted to emotion, not like, Devo over emotion stuff, but just heartfelt stuff. And when I'm filming, I'm always hoping someone will give me them. And what happened in this project was I got to give me them on camera too. I've never been on camera before, really, until this project. And so, I have an amazing mom and amazing grandmom and dad, and they cared about people, and they taught me that. Strangers, how to ask a stranger anything. But when you ask it from a place of caring, boom. So that's where I live. And that's why this footage exists like this. We didn't mine any stories. We didn't try to get someone to cry. We didn't bring up something we did in our research. We knew that their dog got hit by a train when they were 6. We didn't do any of that stuff. It's done, but we didn't do it. We actually didn't even try to pry into people's lives. You all see episode 2. It's a pretty heavy story. We tried not to tell that story, but the family insisted years into the project. For us, the two major things, when you shoot a lot of footage in documentaries, you need to log it all. It's boring as hell. It's really boring. And we log things, and funny is a huge column, like funny, and emotional. Like what are we really feeling here? Now, I think what you asked me was, do I think that the farming community has these emotions that we have? Is that a good example of the farming community that we found in our project? It's an example of the human community that I found in my life. And, it takes courage to expose yourself. It takes courage to be open. But another friend of mine, Alex, who's a great teacher, I'm so glad I get to give them credit. He taught me that the most dangerous heart is the closed heart. And actually, the safest heart is the open heart. And again, I didn't show up with this knowledge. I just have been lucky enough to learn it. I've been on the planet a bit now. And so for me, someone telling me their story, I'm all ears, except on airplanes. I just want to put my headphones on and just chill out. And I've got to be very careful because I don't want to be rude to people. But on airplanes, I just want to have my own space. I used to wear really bad shirts just so people wouldn't talk to me on airplanes. But anyway. Thanks. Where's next?
Hello, left. On your left. I've got a microphone already. So you mentioned some of your colleagues are getting threatening letters.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering who they're from. I mean, maybe they weren't signed, but is this other farmers? Is this big ag chem? Who's threatened by this stuff?
You know, for Richard Teague and the academic world that he's been in, and we talk about this in the movie, I think folks were threatened by the idea that what they've said in their academic career was being challenged. They perceived it as challenging. Rather than science evolves and things change as we learn new things. The guy who told the world that there was tectonic plates, and that's probably the reason there's been earthquakes and mountains, he died with people laughing at him. And then they found out when they did the sonar of the Atlantic Ocean, they saw the ridge that matched Africa and South America so perfectly. Oh, maybe he was onto something. But he died with everyone. So science evolves. So that was the threat that Richard Teague had. The threat with Michigan State, it might have been farmers saying, you're now in competition with me because you're going to be raising beef to sell. It might have been something like that. I just look at it as fear of the unknown, which would be that. Yeah.
What, if anything, did you learn from the traditional farmers?
A lot. Humanity. I learned that presumptions, I learned that every farmer loves their land, no matter what method they're using. I learned that every farmer, as Gabe Brown says, wants to sign the back of a check and not the front of a check. I learned that simply calling someone and wishing them Merry Christmas means an enormous amount. And that's what Prentice did the first Christmas after he met me. I learned that when you try to take a farmer's wife out to lunch, she will say, there's nothing good around here, I'll just make it for you. And that's happened a lot. Just good people. Just good frickin' people. That's what I learned. Yeah. Who's got the mic? Who's got the next question? How are we doing on time? Because we started right on time.
Good.
We're good?
You actually have an hour.
I do?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll just keep going. Someone bring okay, yep.
The bird numbers you mentioned seem low. I mean, if we do one on my farm, you get 50, 60 or 70 species. Were they just looking at the field either side? Why was there only 5 or 6 species or 0? It seemed very low for the UK. If it was.
That's a great question, and I'm going to ask Mike McGraw and Steve Applebaum that question. I can give you part of that question. This was a slice of the type of bird we were studying. This wasn't every species of bird we were studying. I'm glad I remembered that now. This was just the grassland birds. So we also did the ecotonal birds and the birds that only live in the forest. So there was a lot more birds. And that paper has just been resubmitted for publication. I'm checking my email every day, hoping we get the yes. Publishing's a bitch. How many scientists are here? Oh, good. How many scientists think publishing is easy? Exactly. So yeah, there are a lot more birds, and so if you go to rootsodeep.org, research, and slide down, that bird publication will be up soon, I hope. So yes, good point. Very good point. Yep.
Hi. How do we get the message across to the politicians and the people that are taking decisions? Because, like you said, agricultural colleges and universities still teaching the same stuff as they did 40 years ago because the big ag is paying them for it.
Yep.
And to get that to change, you need to get at the top, which doesn't seem to be the farmers are listening. It's the people at the top that aren't listening.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons we made this movie, right? This series. That sounds like my alarm. I'm like, I did not set my alarm this morning. Because the birds woke me up at 4 o'clock this morning when the sun was up. So yeah, welcome to summer in England. We're doing it both ways and in the middle, right? So we have farmers who are in college right now who are having screenings with their fellow students to then demand from the teachers change. So we're doing it there. We're doing it amongst farmers. And the showing it to leadership piece of this, we've already started. We had a great screening for the U.S. Department of Agriculture last August, where they had all 4 episodes. Then we had this, I think, 300 people on Zoom conversation with the Undersecretary, Robert Bonney, leading that conversation. And so for me, here's the tool. Now I need your help. We all need your help. You need our help. Show it. And our social media is doing a lot of work on this. We just went over 60 million views of all the clips since last August, this last week. And we have 417,000 followers amongst the channel. So it's happening. There's other films that are made that are doing this as well. I'd just say everyone do something. Like if you have a leader you know, just ask them to watch the first 10 minutes. And that's how we'll do this. It's going to be inches. By inch, it's a cinch. By a mile, it's a trial. I read that on a sugar packet in South Africa once. And it's true. And I was just about to edit a big movie, and I was like, okay, if I just inch along. So that's how yeah. There we go. And we got a beautiful T-shirt over here.
Is that me? I'm a student at Royal Agricultural University, Cirencester, which some people might consider a bastion of the old ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. But an undergraduate student put on a showing of a British film, 6 Inches of Soil,
Yay.
A month or 2 ago.
Yep,
and,
great film.
So things are changing.
There you go.
And the person, I think, behind some of the change at the REU is Tom Macmillan, and Tom is doing things in the study area here.
Oh, I thought you were pointing to him in the audience. No, okay.
And so I think everyone should know about it. Things are changing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Statement made. Thank you. Yes, sir. And we got to get to that T-shirt over here, Alex. Yeah.
Morning, thank you.
Good morning.
You've shown us grassland and how paddock grazing, mob grazing works, and the results challenging generations of conventional thinking.
Yep.
Have you had a chance to do the same with root vegetables, what is traditionally been heavy tillage, deep tillage, and brown soil, the bird in the oil?
Yeah, so I just met someone from a big old potato company yesterday called McCain, and I was presenting at McDonald's. What we haven't said is who funded our research. McDonald's was the biggest funder, McDonald's US. And so I was presenting this data yesterday to the UK folks. And that's a head scratcher because you have to dig up the roots. Now, was also told yesterday by my host that, that Gabe Brown is practicing growing potatoes on the surface with a covering. Right? So maybe we haven't all thought it through enough yet. That's a tricky one because I love potatoes. And I've been wondering about that. So I don't know the answer to that, but I think it needs to be discovered. I think we need to be practicing. And if you have ideas, let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. Yeah, got to have potatoes.
Like, what's the response been from farmers in the States? And like, have you had many people contacting you or like coming up to you and stuff?
We've been on the road, we've called our hometown roadshow since June of last year. And we've shown it at universities, ag universities, we've shown it in barns, we've shown it in churches. And every screening we've had, the conventional farmers that are there ask us how to learn. Maybe not every conventional farmer there, but we get a number of them. It's working. It's working. And I think what's really important is, again, another teacher friend of mine, Luke Phillips, he taught me when I was in a very blamey space in my life. He's like, stop blaming everything, man. No blame, no shame. No blame, no shame. And that's how we do it. That's how we approach people, because that's, I think, a really good way to approach people. I don't like to be blamed. I don't like to be shamed, so who else would? And so farmers know that. They know where we're coming from. We get so many replies on social media. I get emails almost daily now, how do I do this? And what's funny is people think that I know, which is you know, I'm a filmmaker. I'm not a farmer. I'm not a scientist. Those are the first words in the movie, almost. And so I think I know, right? Because I've been filming this stuff for a decade and a half. So I start answering, and then I say, but you really should talk to Alan Williams. And then I send that email to Alan Williams and the other person, and then Alan privately comes to me and says, Peter, would you just let me do this? Like, you don't have to bother with writing what you think about what they should be doing. Just let me do this. So I keep thinking about it. So there is one email that's out right now where I suggested goats for something. So we'll find out if I'm right or wrong. But it's been really good. It's been really good, and I think it's going to get a lot better. Because that's what I've realized. This is for the farmers, man. Like, we're here to help, and the farmers are feeding us. And so I'll just talk about the U.S. We live in a society in the U.S. that demeans farmers, ignores farmers, doesn't even think about farmers. I didn't know about farmers till I started doing this work, but now I'm in love with the whole gang. And I'm like an honorary farmer who can't grow anything, but I can eat. And I've had amazing meals in farm kitchens in the UK and in the US. They make you tea here, which is awesome. You just, hey, would you like some tea? That's the first question you get in this country. It's such a good question. So yeah, so it's good.
Question here. I have a microphone. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. About methane.
Yes.
We all know that we meter methane in many different ways. We have the IPCC method, extracting biogenic methane 4 times. And then we have a British Oxford University model telling it all right. How could you, as a filmmaker, to make public and politicians to understand this difference and correct it?
So, I think you were talking about Miles Allen's work at Oxford just then. GWP star, global warming potential star, and global warming potential just normal. Yeah. So the idea that if we just talk about methane, we're going to get the answer is already the wrong thing. Because on farms, it's 3 greenhouse gases. It's CO2, it's methane, and it's nitrous oxide. And if you're not measuring all 3, you're not getting the whole picture. So there's a big movement right now to just get rid of anything that produces methane, therefore the world's going to be better, with no sense of all the benefits that that thing that's producing methane, called a cow, is doing. It's myopic. The heart's in the right place because we're all worried about climate change, but it's just not the whole story. And so what you're talking about is the IPCC's older method of accounting for methane is over here. What Miles Allen at Oxford's doing is he realized we need to account for time. And so when we're accounting for time and warming potential, CO2 and nitrous oxide are kind of over here. They're the long-lasting greenhouse gases, right? CO2's here, nitrous oxide's 220 times more powerful, but they're the long-lasting ones, hundreds of years, right? We have a piece from an old film of mine that says the carbon from when Abraham Lincoln had a cook stove is still up in the atmosphere. The carbon from Elvis's truck before he became famous and he was a truck driver, that's still up in the atmosphere, or some of it. Then over here you've got methane that's 10 to 20 years in its method of breaking down on average. And so Miles then realized we have to account for the time, and what he realized was in that accounting method, we've been over-counting methane 4 times, right? So in our work on this film, when you get to episode 4 and you get the greenhouse gas data that we got, we don't use Miles's accounting because his is new. It's accepted by the IPCC, and I think he's absolutely right. We use the older accounting that makes the methane numbers more powerful, which makes the numbers we get in our film even more strong because we think it's going to be, the methane's going to become less powerful than the accounting, therefore the greenhouse gas solutions that grazing can be will be powerful. So we've started that in our film. We'll be making lots of little short films too to help that. I'd like to collaborate with Miles and his team on a short film. Yeah. Good here. Oh, he beat you. He beat you. All right. Thank you,
Hi,
Alex.
Paul from Think Better World.
Yes.
Question, is there something about the health, both of animals and, I
I suppose, the nutrient density of any food that's other crops that are produced, and therefore our health?
Yeah. So the work that's going on right now is based on the premises that if you have a thriving microbial community, it's getting as many nutrients out of its world as it can to feed the plant, because the plant's doing its job of bringing carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, sucking the carbon down, or giving the carbon to the microbes and burping out the oxygen for us, at least in the daytime. And so that thriving microbial community, some of the microbes actually drill into rock and get minerals up into the plant that the plant couldn't possibly get. So it's a beautiful symbiotic experience. And so that would then say that anything growing in that soil that's got thriving microbes would have more nutrients in it. And so the word nutrient dense is the word being used right now. And so then if you have nutrient dense forage for cattle to be grazing on, and then they themselves will have that phytonutrient, that plant nutrient in their meat. And then when we eat that meat, if we choose to eat that meat, then we'll have more nutrients in us. And all that's happening, all that's being researched, and all that is proving true. And so that's not in our study. We sort of had to stop it at some point because it's a bear to fundraise. This thing costs $10 million, and it's taken us 10 years to do. So you have to stop somewhere. And so Stefan von Fleet is leading that charge at Utah State University, and he comes under the love and care of Fred Provenza, who's emeritus at Utah State. And so you look up those folks, you'll be at the front of that research. Final question.
Oh dear, responsibility. Having seen part 4, I've seen the data.
No spoilers?
No. Well, maybe a little bit. The financial, it was shown that the AMP grazers got more per animal.
Yeah.
Were they selling that with a story of what they were doing, or were they just selling that into the normal market? Were they selling what they're doing to the customers?
I would say that they were selling that with the story of what they were doing. Yeah, that it was grass-finished beef, and that's what the benefit was. But there's much more data to be collected along those lines. We had for that world, for the social economic science, we had a very, very small data set, like almost too small for some of the publications even. You know, when you have 10 farm pairs and you're counting all the birds 8 times a year, 8 times over 2 years, we had enough data for most of the biological research that, 2 years of flux tower data, all that stuff. But a sample set of 10 farms, each one doing 5 doing one method, 5 doing another, we need to do a much bigger socioeconomic study to get even more data. That's what I want, and I know someone's here that could help with that. There she is. You know I've been talking about that the whole time, right? Okay. That was the last question. All right. So thank you all. RootsSoDeep.org. Please check it out. We would be very, very, very honored if you would. And thank you very much for your time.